And we're live. So welcome to the After Dram. Welcome to you, the viewer. Welcome to our fantastic panel. It's the After Dram, and that means it's time to unwind. So put your feet up, grab a cocktail or two, and relax. And we're very happy. So, what we're going to do right now is we are going to do a quick recap of our evening, but I just want a quick picture of your distillery up as I do it. That one right there. So, So a quick recap. Nicole, Blair, Davin, and I have been treated to a tour of Gordon's distillery, Odd Society Spirits, in the commercial port of Vancouver. We're all now sitting in the cocktail lounge, enjoying a much anticipated beverage, because as you know, distillery tours are really hard work. And so here we are. Let's start this though with another round of introduction. So if you could tell me your names, your handles, and what's in your glass, and we can do that. So let's get us all on board here. And Miriam, let's start with you, if that's all right.
Okay, sure. Hi. I'm Miriam Clark, and I'm the business manager. I'm with Odd Society, and yes, Odd Society Spirits.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we're going to go to Davin.
Hi, I'm Davin, the Kergomeaux, co-author of this book, The Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries. I'm still drinking my my Prospector Rye. It's
still, you got to work through that, Davin.
Well, I got to get this bottle done before the evening's over.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My priorities are a bit off. Yours are right where they should be. Blair, let's put you on the spot.
Hi, Blair from the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries. And I'm sticking to my Manhattan using some great vermouth from Oz Society.
Nice. And Nicole's turn to be on the spot.
Hi there, I'm Nicole, also go by Nick. You can find me on Instagram as Black Hat Whiskey, and I am doing the two cocktails that Odd Society recommended this evening.
Woo! 250 it. Good job. And there's me. Let's throw me back on here. And I'm Dolph. I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society. I'm your host tonight, and I'm also 250. Miriam sent these to us. And on beautiful cards. So here's the cards and the directions in the back. It's fantastic. So that's one. And here's the second one. And this is really, it's terribly important because I am a cocktail noob. I've made one cocktail in my life, I think. It's a rusty nail. So really, it's Scotch, whiskey, and Drambuie. That's it. And a little spritz of something else in there. That's all I've ever made. So this is a momentous night for me to have done two. Well, four. I made two for my wife within the 5 minutes before the shows. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy that we did this together. And I would love to continue our tour together. And we have both Gordon and Miriam in the background. So Gordon, do you have anything in hand? I skipped over you. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is really bad because I wanted something light, so I just grabbed the ginger beer that we made.
You can drink anything you want. No, you don't have to explain yourself to me. You drink anything you want. Good job. But I was saying this before, because I'm not used to cocktails. This is going down really quickly. And I think I could drink a lot of these over the hour that we're on the show. So I'm glad I only made two of them. Seriously, this could be really, really dangerous. I don't know how you guys get used to it.
So what you're saying, Dolph, is that we should step in to host this if you fall backwards.
Blair and Davin and Nicole, if you ever find the need to step in because I've overstepped my bounds and I've had too much, you have full authority to say whatever you want in those times. I trust you all implicitly. Miriam, how's this look? How's the color?
It looks perfect, actually. And the thing with the Key Royale is you can make it as sweet as you like, or if people don't really like it as sweet, they can just add a teeny bit of the cassis for just a bit of color. How does it
I only
taste?
put the half ounce. I could have actually put an ounce in there.
Yes, you can do whatever you like.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Well, the thing is, I'm a teacher, and there's directions, there's rules, and you
Yes.
have it on a card, and so those rules are pretty steadfast. It's that's the rule. That's what I'm going to do. But now
But
that
now that you're a cocktail making pro, and
Okay.
you've got basic guidelines, you can do what you like.
do whatever I want. I like that. Thank you very much. Thanks. All right. Let's start this off. And Miriam, I want to get you involved because no matter how good the spirit is, people have to be introduced to the spirit to gain appreciation for it. And I'm guessing that you, Miriam, are the mastermind behind the Odd Society brand development. Are you the one that's got the name out everywhere through BC and now into Alberta?
Gordon likes to say yes, but honestly, we have an amazing team, and I feel very blessed to be working with people that we work with. So it is very much a team effort.
That's a perfect answer. That's lovely. I want you to say what you do more than anyone else. Let's shine a spotlight on you. What have you done that makes you really proud of what you're doing? Because I emailed you back. I sent an initial email at 11:30 at night, and you responded like that, just bang. So you're on all the time. So I think you need a little bit more of the accolades than you're giving yourself.
Well, that's very kind. Hard to say what I'm really proud of. I really enjoy, our staff. I enjoy the customers. I enjoy the people component of it. I feel, Gordon mentioned earlier that we're in a great neighborhood with a very supportive community. One thing that really blew my mind with the people that we are, our community, when we first offered our cask program, but no one knew anything about us. We released the vodka, maybe the cassis. They had no idea what kind of whiskey we would be making if we knew anything about what we were doing. And we sold out of that cask program in less than a month's time.
Nice.
People blindly supported us, purchased these casks, and they keep purchasing them. So that I think was one of the very first I don't know, it was a very moving time when people had supported us without knowing really what we could accomplish.
That's a nice thought. And it's nice to know that someone has your back in these times as well, right? Okay. We'll get back to that and how much you've worked with the people around in a couple minutes.
Right.
I just wanted to ask Davin, because Davin, when you walked in, you talked about it was long and narrow, but I'm guessing that you did go into the cocktail lounge and had several of these like I am right now. What was your initial thought when you walked in? And I'm guessing you met Gordon, Miriam, you talked for a while. Tell us what you thought.
Well, first of all, I wasn't drinking because I was visiting 4 distilleries a day and making notes, and I had to be able to go back and later write a chapter for the book, So no, I wasn't drinking much, but I was tasting.
Okay.
You walk into the lounge, which is really quite welcoming, and that big picture that they have on the wall, the
I'll get that back up.
phantasmagoric picture, it's really kind of sets on the atmosphere of the place. It's like, what is that anyway? And there's a place. Yeah, it's really quite welcoming. You've got the the stills in the back and the barrels behind that and so on. I don't know. I quite like the place. I already knew Gordon and Miriam, of course, and I was already familiar with their whiskey. But so yeah, I really enjoyed it. But Miriam, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You tell me how great your staff are. Who is Mia Glanz, who wrote a cocktail for us for our book?
So Mia is our daughter.
Okay.
And she started, when we started the business, she came on board. And she she got involved immediately, and she's been such a great, not because she's our daughter, but she has been just such a great part of our business. She also became interested in she decided she wanted to help create our Amaro, and she's also, the Amaro is hers. It's called Mia Amata, and she was studying ethnobotany at UBC. So originally she wanted to make an aphrodisiac liqueur.
And she told her parents?
What's that? Yes, yes.
And she told her parents?
She did. And anyway, so one thing, her research led to the Amaro, and then she ended up using some of the aphrodisiacs in the Amaro. And maybe that's why people keep buying it.
Yeah, could you set a couple of bottles aside for me, please?
And Mia was our bar manager for quite a while, and she just recently moved to Mexico City. So we definitely miss her very much. But so that is Mia.
Okay, I'm hoping someday to sit down and have a Blackheart Manhattan with her. Our publisher was so taken with that they used that to promote the book, that cocktail. Oh, I gave you some of those cards. Yeah, they're really. It's funny because the woman who is doing this promotion for the book, I've started following her on Instagram, and she's really, really into food and drinks, and so I was pretty impressed that she liked that one so much. But anyway,
yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's a beautiful one. Yeah, thank you so much for choosing that, and she's. We're going to definitely miss her. Her cocktail creations are very, very unique.
That's a great question, because I thought that was Blair's. I thought Blair created all these guys. So I was going to ask Blair how he came up with this recipe, because Davin, I thought you were suggesting I should do this. And did you see the steps in this thing?
Yeah, I was a little bit. I wasn't sure how the cocktail business was going to work, quite honestly, Dolph. And when I looked at this, I thought, if you're making the Blackheart Manhattan, man, we're going to be here all night.
I think so. So 5 minutes between these shows is not enough. I need a half an hour.
Yeah.
And who has this? A bar spoon of Ferret Branca and a pinch of activated charcoal powder? Are you kidding me? Where am I getting these things?
You don't keep activated charcoal in your pantry?
You use it for baking with chocolate. It makes your chocolate cakes really dark. Okay,
I'm sorry. I don't bake. So Nick, that's cheating. That's cheating. That's like E148. That's cheating. 158. Oh my god. Oh yeah, sorry guys. Sorry.
Actually, a good simple cocktail, if you want to use the rye, is bittersweet vermouth, cassis, and the rye.
Both.
And it's very simple, and you just stir it.
1 ounce of each?
Gordon knows the proportions. He just recently made it.
So it's hi there. It's 1 ounce of the rye, 0.75 of the vermouth, and 0.25 of the cassis.
So
it's delicious.
So my wife will get on that right now. Really? Yeah, that's a good idea. And what type of glass do I use? Because I came up with a glass that was very similar to what you had in there. I was pretty happy with myself. The champagne flute I had. So, Miriam, what glass am I using?
That you've used, the glasses that you've used for those two cocktails are perfect. Okay. For the rye one that we just mentioned, I would just use a rocks glass.
Oh, I got a lot of those. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start with a quote, and it comes from this book, The Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, The Portable Expert to over 253 actually, I think, right? Distilleries and the spirits they make states. How's that for a segue? Small or large? Let's put it. We can see it on the screen. Small or large, each of Canada's distilleries has its own distinct, often eccentric personality. And I'm thinking that describes the Odd Society pretty well. And I think if it was me, I'd be pretty proud of that. So your website tells us also that you're all about experimentation, embracing change, and celebrating our individual and collective oddities, which I think is fantastic. Thank you very much for that. How do you promote this vision, this state of being in your lounge or on the shelf? And also, can you talk about the painting as well by Schwa Kirstil?
Kirsten, yes.
Thank you.
Well, so Schwa, we originally got connected with Schwa because he did a painting of an owl that we used for our label for our East Van vodka. And Gordon's going to go and grab it so we can show you. And we loved it. And then we asked him if he could do an interpretive drawing of our stills. And so he did this drawing, and then we blew it up, and it's a mural, and Davin's mentioned it a couple of times. And Schwa he's a tattoo artist. He lives in the neighborhood. And here, we'll show you. So this is the owl.
Here, I'll blow you up a little bit. There we go. You got a better look at that.
Yeah. So that also Schwa created. And then he also did a funny one that we haven't had the opportunity to use yet. He uses the owl, and then he has the owl chewing on a piece of straw because we wanted to do a wheat vodka. And so, anyway, so that's the story behind the mural.
Yeah. We kind of showed Schwa our stills and said, hey, make us a drawing of the stills. And it's kind of behind me actually, because I'm at the distillery. You can see it there.
Oh,
yeah. So we were pretty impressed. And Schwa is such an amazing artist that we have this new thing that I've sort of dreamed about, is having different artists paint the end of our barrels. So we just had Schwa paint the end of one of our whiskey barrels. And then we want to get different local artists to paint the ends of the barrels. And then, I know it sounds a bit corny, but then you'll have them all in the warehouse, and we'll call it the auditorium. Where you go in there and you gotta, and you look at all these barrels that are painted by local artists. So we're working on that. It's like the next crazy thing.
Fabulous idea.
it is. So let's go with that vein that you're working in the community, and tell me how much you collaborate with the artists we've got. So that's one. But how about brewers, distillers, vineyards? How much do you collaborate with everyone else around you? Because you have a wealth, so many people in Vancouver, but just outside of Vancouver, there's so much there as well. So what do you got for us?
Our big focus is really working with the breweries, and there's some interesting programs that we've been doing with breweries. Mm-hmm. But one is, for example, we do a barrel-aged gin, and so we often will give the breweries the barrel.
Okay.
The gin was sitting in, and they've done some really interesting beers with that.
Yeah.
And then there's a whiskey program that we've actually started.
So actually, one of the things that we've been doing is we've done it now five or six times where the brewery does the mashing. Okay. So they'll pick a beer, we'll send them the local BC grains, and then we do, once they've mashed it, we bring it to the distillery and take it from there. So, for example, we were just tasting today, Balmer Brewing did an IPA beer. And so we distilled the IPA. And then, so we'll try an IPA whiskey. And it's actually pretty amazing. So at Christmas, we're releasing a 3-pack of brewery beers. So Powell Street Brewery did a corn whiskey, a corn beer. And then we turned that into like a bourbon style. Doan Brothers across the street did a rye beer, turning that into a rye. And then Parallel 49 did their Old Boy beer, which is mainly barley based. And so it's really cool because they do the mashing, and then we actually get a pallet jack and bring the mash over here because they're so close. And we two blocks, we'll drag these 1,000-liter totes back to the distillery, and then we'll distill them at the distillery. So we really want to be collaborative with our neighbors because they're so close. Yeah,
nice. We can ask. Actually, no, I'll leave it. I've got too many questions. Anyone else have questions?
I do. I've got a geek question from the first half for Gordon. You talked about the Prospector rye being Northern BC rye, and I got to go to the geeky here. Is it spring rye or winter rye?
Man, I don't even know. Oh man, I got to find out. But I know that it's grown in Dawson Creek.
Okay.
And I know we get it from what is it called? South Peace Grain Co-op, and they told us that it was really so it's part of the Peace River country. It's just sort of that part that spills into BC, and they told us that they had a really hard time finding a farmer that had the quality of the rye they wanted, so they always work with one particular farmer. But I honestly don't know whether it's, you said winter rye or
spring rye.
I can find that out. Yeah, but I don't know. That's cool.
What do you think it is, Nicole?
I don't know. Like, the Peace Country is interesting for a growing area. I know a lot of people put cattle up there, especially in Alberta, because it's not so good for grain growing, but it's great for grazing. So it's interesting that you said it. It's Peace Country. I'm very curious what it's going to be.
I bet you $1 it's winter rye, and the cattle graze on the rye in the fall, and then the next year it comes up and they harvest it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm sure they use it for grazing.
That feed, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're all wondering where this conversation's coming from, Nick and Davin had a fantastic conversation in our very first work in this book where, well, I'm not going to do it. I think you should go back and watch it. But they had a fantastic conversation about this, and it's great. Gordon and Miriam, I'm rescinding my comment. I'm going to say what I wanted to say. I would love to have one of your 3-packs. Could you reserve 1 or 2 for me? And if I have to pick it up, I'll pick it up. I'll have to go to Vancouver. Otherwise, I'll be happy to pass you my credit card and just tap. There's some advantages of doing this. You find things out beforehand, you want part of it, I think. And
you can give me your credit card right now, Dolph. I have Square.
Davin, I trust you. You want my credit card? I'll give it to you. I'll do it. I trust you. I'm good. And the more drinks, and these things are going down. Like this is. Yeah. I tell you, 30 seconds is all I need from these things.
Which is your favorite between the two?
My favorite?
Which is your favorite between the two?
You know what? This went down quicker because it's probably sweeter. And I generally don't like sweet, to tell you the truth. I'm not a sweet guy but I think the sour note to it is really enticing. This I'm enjoying because of the ice. And I don't usually do ice with my drinks, to tell you the truth. I don't. But it's very refreshing. It's probably about 30 degrees in here right now. Maybe about 25. I'm exaggerating. About 25 degrees. So the ice is helping. So the initial flavor, you can tell it went down too quickly at the change. And this, how refreshing it is. It's fantastic. But thank you very much. And what's everyone's favorite? Why don't we ask everyone? Well, Blair's got his own drink, and Davin's finishing his bottle. Nick, what do you think?
I actually like the soda. I like the tartness of it. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Dolph, it is so warm. This is super refreshing right now because it's hot and it's humid here, which for June is a bit of a surprise for us. Not going to knock it, but a nice, refreshing drink helps.
We're good. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a Canadian version of a spritz.
Okay.
So Miriam, can you talk a little bit about the Amaro? It's absolutely fantastic, but a lot goes into this. How many botanicals are in it?
Well, this is Gordon's department, so we're gonna.
Well, So as Mira mentioned, Mia made it, but there's 35 botanicals actually. And so what happens is there's different stages. So for example, the first stage is just alcohol, and we use salted plums from Iran, and then it sits in there for about 10 days, and so you get this sort of plummy saltiness that you may not notice but is there. And then the next stage, there's a bunch of maybe 20 botanicals that get added. It stays for a week or so, and then the final stage is where you get some of the fresh citrus gets added. Like Chinoto as well, like Chinoto orange. We get fresh peels. We get the peel sent from California, so there's a lot of citrus that goes in it. So it tastes complex, but it's actually unbelievably complex. All the Amaros, how much actually goes into them, you know.
Excellent.
Yeah, because it's if I took every spirit on the planet, this is in my top 10 for sure.
Oh my!
Wow.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
It's amazing.
Jordan, or well, because you're not on the camera now, can you? Oh, no, you're on the camera. I was going to ask you to go back there and show us a picture of that. I'm a very visual guy, so I won't remember names, but I'll remember that.
A picture of the Amaro?
Mia Amara. Amara?
Yeah,
Amara.
Blair's got it. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful bottle too. I'll remember that. No, that's good to know. Good.
Yeah, it's a funny how that it all ties into Nia, because the young woman who did the label for that. So Schwa Kierstead is the one we talked about the drawings, is a tattoo artist, and he did all these crazy wild things. And then the one who did the Mia Mata is a friend of Mia's. They went to high school together, and she became a tattoo artist. And Mia asked her to, when she did the Amaro, if she could do the label for that, and so she did that, which is pretty amazing actually. So that's a friend of Mia's who did, a tattoo artist who did the Katie So was her name, yeah.
And what's the base spirit in that?
So the base spirit is so
There's that dramatic pause again.
Yes, it is.
yeah. So we make the neutral that we use for our gin and our liqueurs, and it's made from malted barley. Yeah, it's our barley spirit. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's nice to know. I like
That's
like
a geeky
stories about the artist. Really, it really quite good. I want to question though. This will be Blair, Davin, Gordon, Miriam. In this whole process for this book, because I'd like to know how this worked. Who contacted you? Was it Davin directly? So Blair did Ontario. Davin, no, you did Shelter Point as well, right, Blair? So you were on.
No, well, it's kind of complicated because some places Davin would contact. We split up the list basically, but with Odd Society, it would have fallen within Davin's portfolio.
Okay, I'd like to know the process. So Davin, you've got the phone in front of you. You call them up. You've got their phone number somehow, and then what happens? Or you email them.
Well, I emailed people. It works better that way. They can answer at their own leisure.
Yeah.
Just explained what I was doing and set a time. And I was trying to visit 4 distilleries a day because there were a lot of distilleries. When we started, there were 130 distilleries to visit. By the time we were done, there were 257, I think, but we only got to 200. Or no, actually, probably fewer than that. But in any case, so I just sent them a note, and then we just negotiate until it was right. Some places were, quite amenable to fitting themselves into our schedule. Some were less amenable, and some were downright unfriendly.
Oh, well, you must be one of the friendly ones, because when I said where should we start? Davin suggested you right away. It was bang. It was right away in the email. So he likes you guys a lot. However, I have asked Davin what he thought of your place when he came in. I'd like to know from you, Gordon and Miriam, what do you think of Davin when he came in?
I'm taking my earphones out now.
Okay, I want to know. It's the After Dram. We're supposed to be more relaxed and say whatever comes to mind.
Well, I didn't meet Davin when he visited, but I have talked to Davin at the Victoria Whisky Festival. And he seems to be in his absolute element, very at the Victoria Whiskey Festival. So it's always enjoyable to see him there and to chat with him. But in terms of Davin's visit here, Gordon would be able to comment on that.
Yeah, it was a super enjoyable experience, you know, because Davin's also so knowledgeable of whiskey, and just being able to show him around. And I mean, we're kind of humbled because we are at a fairly small level, you know, a small scale, and, you know, all the big distilleries out in Ontario. So, yeah, it's kind of like, this is what we're trying to do. And yeah, it was great meeting Davin. We're thrilled to be, you know, to be part of it and to be included in, you know, doing our part, kind of how we see it. Yeah. And
I'm always impressed because we follow each other on Instagram, and I'm always impressed with how supportive Davin is in terms of, you know, just distilleries in general, comments and likes on different Instagram posts.
Yep.
And you know, trying to be fair and supportive to everyone. I'm sure that might be difficult sometimes.
Well, I'm going to add to this Davin love fest, and I'm going to say the same thing at the Banff Whiskey Experience. And here's a picture. Davin found this for me. This is me. He had signed. If you look at the books, there's the original one and then 3 second editions behind it. So he lovingly signed all 3 for my friends who didn't want to sit in line, and I was the sucker that got to sit there.
But we got to chat.
But we got to talk, and because of that, and our time together, because we spoke very little before that, but I think it might have been online previously. And then when I asked him to do the first book, our first book club, Davin was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And the sense of adventure from Davin is what makes me happy. And when I did the other thing, and Nick will attest to this, when we did this book with Ralphie, there's other things that I really loved about Ralphie, and it was his sense of adventure. And I see that in Davin, his ability to go out and just do something and see something and just say, yeah, let's do it. And that's what we're doing here for this book. And our suggestion to go and do what we're doing tonight, not just one thing, but 2. We do the Whisky Book Club and we do the After Dram, both of them. So this is a 2-hour commitment. Not only that, we're going to talk to each other afterwards. And that's going to be an extra amount of time. And poor Davin and Blair are 2 hours ahead of us, 3 hours ahead of Miriam and Gordon.
wow.
It's 4 a.m. here.
It's 4. He's in England. Sorry, yeah. Blair's in England, and I forgot about that. That's why he keeps drinking continually to stay awake. It's good. But I do. And Davin is very open to doing things like that, which is very amenable to people like me who just want to talk about whiskey, just want to drink for the very first time certain cocktails. It's very fun.
Well, that's the thing, because I didn't know Davin when I was writing a book review about his book, and I sent him an email with these 10 long questions, and within a day he wrote back these long, great answers. And yeah, it's amazing what he does.
Well, he said you asked the right questions, so he must have been pretty impressed by your questions in the first place.
I'm starting to blush.
You should.
Quite honestly.
Blush away. It's the alcohol. You're still trying to finish the whole thing, buddy. It might be the alcohol, it's not us.
That prospector.
Yeah, good. And another question for... And Nick, I'm sorry, you're going to have to jump in to shut me up a little bit, but I'm going to ask a question to all of them. And I know Davin and Blair are part of Canadian not Scotch, whiskey royalty. We say their names and people know who they are. But I'm wondering, same thing, Gordon and Miriam, if this is your opus vitae, is this your your passion, your life's work, what you're doing right now. And this is for everybody. And Nick, if you are too, you answer. And let's get to it. No one? It's not your Opus Vitae?
Oh, yeah. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing a lot.
Yeah, I think, my story was, so I went from being a translator, and then for about 20 years, I was a technical writer, and I was writing books for computer manuals, instructions on how to do things. But I'd always liked whiskey, and anyway, one day I was surfing on the internet, and I said,
dramatic pause.
That man knows how to hold his breath.
He does. It's like,
I said to Miriam, I phoned her up, and I said, when I saw the Harry Watt thing, I said, I finally found what I want to do when I grow up, so.
Nice.
So and that's when we, a year later, we went to Harriet Watt, and so I think I've been lucky to find something that I'm very passionate about. Absolutely.
Good. Blair,
Miriam,
have you
Blair.
found yours? Is this your Opus Vitae, writing books? And I heard that you do have another project with Davin coming up, and I'm assuming it's another book, but I'm not going to push the issue because you didn't on it was, I think, a YouTube Whiskey in the Six. He kind of pushed it, but you wouldn't say anything. But you do have something else in the background. Is this your life's work?
I would like, yeah, no, we do have another project on the go. This book here, I would love to do a second edition. Yeah, the experience was extremely rewarding.
I'm just posing a little bit. This is my pause for effect. Davin is writing about whiskey, Canadian whiskey, your life's work, your Opus Vitae. What is it?
I was on the high school newspaper,
Oh,
and
okay.
I've always been writing something for someone. I started writing about whiskey in the 90s. And I've really got into it. Now, it was all Scotch in the beginning, and single malt at that. And but I really enjoy it, and it's I found a little niche of my own, so where I can speak with some authority, because I've done the work, I've put in the hours and done the travel and done the research and all that. So. It's very fulfilling doing this. I have to tell you something that is not fulfilling is releasing a new book 2 days after we go into lockdown.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's like, honestly, I want to be out there talking to people. Dolph, this is why I appreciate you doing the book club, because at least you're getting the word out about it.
It is our pleasure. Blair and Davin, tell us about, because I heard this one, listen to your other productions, what you were doing the week after it came out, because this is really interesting to me, how much you were traveling, where you were both going back and forth, where you were coming together. If you could talk about that for a couple minutes, just what your itinerary looked like the 2 weeks afterwards. That's really,
you mean what we had to cancel, you mean?
Yes, everything you had to cancel. But what was planned for you previous to that?
It was insane.
We
were doing more than one appearance a day. It averaged out to that. I think over 30 days we had like 40 shows. We were to do about 40 shows. We were doing at Shelter Point. We had a big event there. We had just some events in Vancouver. We were doing the Canadian Artisan Spirits competition, which was. We were really looking forward to it. We had dinners planned. We had tastings planned. We had a tour of Alberta planned, a big tour of Alberta. Really cool, really cool. We had events planned in Ontario, and there was more coming together. But we had television appearances in Calgary, Edmonton, I don't think Vancouver was organized yet. And Montreal,
Toronto.
and Toronto, a bunch of stuff like that, and 100% of everything was canceled. And just, I'm telling you, I felt like slitting my wrists, and it was really quite depressing.
Blair. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Blair, you know what? I love to travel, but when you hear what he just described, so Davin describes what you were going to do, were you looking forward to it, or is it a little bit daunting of a task? I'm wondering.
No, I was looking forward to it. I was really looking forward to going to Vancouver and getting out to all these places and filling my suitcase with spirits to bring back home. And it sucks it was all canceled, but can't do much about that.
No, we can't. But we can feel sorry for you and buy the book. Here's the book. Right here.
Available on Amazon.
Is next Sunday, a week and 1 day away. Everyone here has, well, they're either a father or they have a father, hopefully. And it's just the perfect gift. And
yeah, and I should mention that if you don't buy this book for your father, you're going to ruin his day.
Oh my God. What kind of son or daughter are you if you're not buying something like this for your dad?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I've got a question for Blair, Davin, and Gordon and Miriam. So Blair and Davin, you've written this book giving us the list of a majority of the distilleries across Canada. What advice would you give somebody once we're out of this whole restriction on how to approach these distilleries to do the tours? And then question 2, our distillery with us tonight is, what do you want from people coming to visit you? Like, is it a quick, I pick up the phone, I drop you an email? How do we approach Canadian distilleries? Because I have a sense that it may be different from what we know from touring Scottish distilleries.
Good question. Good question.
Well, I think that we have listed in the book all of the distilleries that want visitors that do tours, and for most of them, you just show up at the door during the hours that they're open, and they'll welcome you with open arms. I mean, part of the business of keeping a distillery going is to sell stuff. People show up there, they buy spirits, of course, but they also buy merchandise and have a drink or have their lunch at the distillery, things like that. There, generally several different revenue streams, and they welcome visitors. Almost all of these distilleries really will welcome visitors. I think, let's go to Miriam, and she could tell us the ideal visitor or the ideal visit. But I certainly would go to her place and get myself a cocktail and some finger food.
Well, it's also interesting because now the context has changed because of COVID, right? And many, well, I can't really speak for outside of BC, but I know in BC, many distilleries, they had to close their tasting lounges.
Yep.
We could sell product from our shops because alcohol is considered an essential service in BC. So yeah, we could continue selling alcohol, but we had to close our bar. And then we certainly couldn't do tours anymore. So now, but before the pandemic, we certainly welcomed people. We were open Thursday to Sunday. We actually moved towards to organize. Also, we wanted to make sure that we had someone available to give the tour. And yeah, the tours are very popular. We also worked with tour companies that would book tours here. So they book a tour, and then we would usually give them a tasting and a cocktail as well.
Nice.
Now things have changed. So we're opening our doors for the first time a week from today.
Okay.
Yeah, so that, we've been changing our lounge and our seating, and we have to have barriers and all sorts of fun stuff.
Wow. A lot of work for you.
My thought was when the pandemic's over, you know, people should first of all open the book, look at the maps, and put together a little whiskey trail, because there are many, you know, good distillery trails in Canada, but you make them yourself. We have maps that show where they are, and in the book we tell people, if you're at this distillery, here are a couple of others that you might want to go to because they're in the neighborhood or they're the closest ones. So put together your tour. But I really encourage people to get out there. I mean, this is a lot of fun. We have, Dolph, we were showing, we have this checklist. So for people who like to complete things, you can check off those distilleries in the back until you visit every single one.
Yeah.
Not just that with the checklist, it also tells you what they have. And the reason why I did that is because I like it. It tells you if visitors are welcome, because not every distillery has a place for visitors. If they have vodka, gin, whiskey, or other. So it gives you that kind of, not just a checklist to say, I've done it, which I like a lot, but what's actually available. And that's right at the back. And you know what? You kind of miss it unless you're looking through this book really intently, because you get kind of taken away by the pictures. And I'm a visual guy, like I said, lots of pictures. They divert me all the time. When you finally get to it, the back, and finding out about the individual distilleries, it's fantastic. And the Odd Society's got every one of them checked. They're very accommodating, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think so.
It honestly is a great place.
Miriam or Gordon, one of the two. I love the story of how this was created. So if you could talk to us about the chef that came from France and established roots in Vancouver, not Victoria, I'm sorry, and all the things he's done. It's on your website. It's a great story, but I'd like to hear it from you, please.
Yes, Hervé Martin.
Yeah, so you know, when we started the distillery, you know, our first idea was vodka, and it's a bit obscure for you know, a brand new distillery to have something like crème de cassis. So what happened was, where we live in Vancouver, our neighbor was actually Hervé Martin, who was a French chef who worked in Michelin star restaurants, who was a personal chef to the King of Belgium, you know, for several years, and
he's coming. Wait.
here I am with that dramatic pause. And he came to the distillery and he said, "This is how you make it." And so he showed us, and it's kind of a fun story. One of the first things was, so the black currants, actually there's a part of the process where they get almost boiled. You know, you add water, you crush the berries, and then it gets cooked. And so then after the cooking, it cools down, it gets filtered. Hervé shows up and he says, "Okay, this is how you do it." He unwraps a package of women's pantyhose.
Ooh.
And he stretches over a bucket, and he pours in the other bucket. And so our first two commercial batches of crème de cassis were filtered through women's pantyhose, because Hervé said that's how they always did it in their family. So, and then after, of course, we realized that, you know, we have to get a little bit serious, and so we got a proper filtration system. But yeah, the real stuff gets filtered through women's pantyhose.
Is that where you got the name Odd Society?
So, it's a little bit odd.
One of
Miriam,
the many
Miriam, what do you think of it? And because my cocktail, I had to save it at least that much until finally you said something at the end about this. Why did you send this to me? Is it just because it was the simplest of possible?
Well, we have a number of recipe cards. We wished we had the drive, which is the one that is the easy one with the rye, but we had run out of those cards.
Oh.
And I did want to send you a couple of recipe cards that were simple, but also because we sent you the rye, the cassis, and the vermouth,
Yep.
To make the drive, we wanted to send you other recipe cards so you can have other uses for the vermouth and the cassis.
That was very nice of you. I've got to say.
I'm glad.
And
But the cassis, what's interesting about the cassis is we almost put cassis on the map, because when we first started, other than people of an older generation, no one had heard of cassis or creme de cassis.
Blair
and
did.
So
Blair knew.
What's that?
I said Blair must have known, but not me.
I've been a fan of cassis for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, but and we also deal with a very diverse demographic. And so, a lot of young people hadn't heard of it, people in their 20s and 30s. And Gordon and I, initially we were the ones to go to the farmers markets. And so we had to talk to people and tell them about it. And it just became so popular, and because it has many different uses. It's probably one of the most versatile liqueur, because you can drink it with soda, you can put it in cider, in beer, in all different types of spirits, sparkling wine, of course. Yes, tequila. There's the El Diablo, which is a really popular tequila drink, and they use creme de cassis for that.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, very good. You can email me that one if
Okay.
That'd be very nice of you. Thank you. This is very exciting, to tell you the truth, because I like the fact that no, I don't like the fact that I'm a little bit of a whiskey snob, and it's always been whiskey, and Nicole's nodding. It's like, yeah, I have been. I like the fact that we have the opportunity, and this is Davin and Blair's doing right now, to get us into this type of situation where it's more common. And I know when you open a distillery that you need the initial influx of money, and a lot of people go to the initial white spirits, but this is not a white spirit. This is something very different. And I can truly appreciate it. And I really did. And I'm a history guy as well. That's my initial, my back is in history. Finding out the information about who produced it and you putting it on the website, I think is a fantastic idea. So I'm not sure if that was you, Miriam, or Gordon, but I think that's fantastic. I'm glad I read about it. And I think, we got this for free and we shared this with our members, but I'll be buying another bottle again. And I think Gavin told me to put it on ice cream. What do you think?
Yes, on vanilla ice cream.
I think so.
Absolutely. We've had customers tell us that they used it for a sauce for chicken, or not chicken, duck, and a vinaigrette.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had restaurants use it in their desserts, like ice cream, but cake, and it's a lot of fun.
Perfect. I do have a question for you both, and I forgot to ask this a couple times. I'm going to put it on the screen. So the water recycling system, I saw that online. I was pretty impressed with that as well. Can one of you two talk to this, please? And then Davin and Blair, I'd like to find out how many other distilleries you've seen that do something like this, or with I don't know, with electricity in certain types of systems to make our life more green. So two step. Let's start with you, Dev. Not Davin. Sorry, Gordon, please.
Yeah. So I honestly can't remember how that came about, but I think we were just working with, when we were first building the distillery, we were working with a refrigeration company, and the guy said, "Oh, I have this old cooling tower, and it's used for cooling water." So anyway, through talking to him, we set up this system where, I think if you look at all the old distilleries, they're beside a river or the ocean or beside water for a reason, because distilleries need water, and a big part of the water is the cooling in the distillation process. So anyway, we set up this whole system where we don't take any new water. It's all it's a closed loop, and we just keep recycling the same water up. So it goes up on the roof, and then it gets there's what they call a cooling tower. There's the fans up there that take the water down to ambient temperature. Then it comes down into the distillery, and then we have a giant tank that has glycol jackets that cools it down further, and then it goes back into the stills. So it just makes this big circle. Honestly, it saves us money because our water, all the water we used in Vancouver, is metered for companies. So you know, we'd use thousands of liters a day, which we don't. So it works both ways. It's green, and yet we save money as well. So I think it's a great way to go, actually.
I agree. Plus. Blair and Davin, can you think of other distilleries that have something with green power, electricity, or water, please?
The three that come to mind are Victoria Distillers. Does the same thing with their water, but they pump it through underground channels through the ocean, right by the seaside. Black Fox Farms in Saskatchewan does something similar.
Okay.
And so does Willowbell's Distillery in Ontario, where they cool their water through the parking lot, which is kind of neat.
Sorry, say that again. Cooling it through the parking lot.
The parking lot, they have a big parking lot in front of their distillery, and they pump the water through a channel underneath the parking lot that does the exact same thing that Gordon was talking about. It's really kind of cool. And I'm assuming there's several more, but we haven't.
Well, it still sounds kind of unique to just a handful of places, though, right? Because I think they would have told you about it as you visited their distilleries, because that's something they would have been proud of.
Yeah, not everything made it into the book. I think that Pemberton has geothermal heating, if I remember correctly. Who else? The old Corby distillery in Corbyville, which has been torn down now, they had to use a cooling tower, and they used to pump the water into the back into the river, the Moira River.
That's cool. They used to for the time too, right?
Pardon me?
Innovative for the time with that.
For the time, yeah. And they used to brag about how healthy the trout were in that river, because I think they got a little bit of feed from that. But it's actually, I think that a lot of places, you know, like you think like King's Lock, which is completely carbon neutral. You know, they buy carbon offsets from a company.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's becoming common enough now that maybe people don't even bring it up.
Really?
But as I say, when you're writing 450 words, you can only say so much.
You're real. Yeah. I get that. Okay.
I have a question for Miriam, actually.
Oh, please.
When does her elderflower liqueur come out?
It's we're working on it as we're speaking.
Ooh. The Chocho soda, which is what I have right now. We're coming to the end of it, but I really like to know everything that you could tell me about this, who created it, and why you've decided to adapt it onto our cards there. If we could, Miriam.
So, well, the reason it's one of the cocktails that we feature is because the spritz is an incredibly popular cocktail in general, and so we wanted to come up with our version using a vermouth. But the cocktail was actually created by another bartender, Wendy McGuinness, who was a very well-known and respected bartender in Vancouver, and she started the program at Pizza Tonto, which is a very cool restaurant in the city. And so she served it there, and then we asked her if we could use it and give her credit, and so that's where that one actually comes from. So it was a creation by another bartender from another venue.
All right. Thank you very much. And one of my last questions is, what do I call this Gordon's concoction? The 1 ounce and the 3/4 ounce of vermouth and the 1/4 of cassis. I hope it was over ice because we put it over ice. What do we call it?
Yeah. So we call it the drive, and because we're very close to the neighborhood commercial drive, and the reason we call it the drive is because it was kind of a take on the Manhattan, and I think there's a cocktail called the Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken. And so the bartender that created it, we felt that we wanted to call it something, a neighborhood that we were in, and so that's why we call it the drive.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something, like a lot of the cocktails that we get when our lounge is open, we always have what we call visiting cocktails. It's kind of like bars have like a local tap or something, like visiting taps or whatever. And so we always feature local cocktails made by other bartenders and call them visiting cocktails. We feature them for about a month or so, and we've had some amazing stuff made by other people that we love to feature.
It tastes like a vacation. Now, that's the words I'm putting to it, because I don't get these senses as I'm drinking whiskey usually, but it tastes like something I would have on a vacation kind of in the south. I taught in Europe for 3 years, kind of the south of France, kind of feel to it for some reason. I don't know why, but that's why I'm going to add to it. And, maybe the drive. And I did enjoy my drive for a certain point to the south of France, but not a whole bunch. My children were young at this point, and it was, are we there yet? That really came up a lot. So that's that one. There was some vermouth. There was some crème de cassis. And I need Davin's picture. There we go. The Prospector Rye in there. That was fantastic. And this is where we are at the moment. We can imagine ourselves at this thing. I would be at the bar. Davin and might be here on the side, but he'd be relaxing, I think, at that point. But this is where we are. This is the end of the night. One last thought, not from me, but maybe from Blair, Nick, Gordon, Davin, and Miriam. Is there anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
Well, actually, there's a quick question. I was going to see if we have enough time for it that came up in the live comment section. Kent asked, how often do you clean the cooling system with the water to stop Legionnaire's disease?
Never saw that. Let's look for that. There we go. Good question, Kent.
Yeah, we have it. So we work with a company that checks our stuff. I would say we flush our system about every 6 months, but we haven't really looked at it in terms of Legionnaire's disease. You know what I mean? We just think we just flush so we drain the water every 6 months. We've talked about it gets heated and cooled. We have no chemicals in it, so according to our refrigeration guy, it's supposed to be okay, because we don't want to put chemicals in case our condensers leak or something, in case it could get into the spirit. So it's a really interesting question. There is a possibility that stuff can generate in there, right? So, but yeah, so I would say it's about every 6 months. Yeah, but I don't know if that's good enough.
But it's a contained system, is it not?
It's a closed loop. There's no.
So it never comes in contact with humans.
Yeah.
No, or the spirit itself. It's just going through pipes. It's getting heated and cooled constantly. But like I say, you never know. So every 6 months we drain it and refill it. Yeah.
Thank you, Gordon. Blair, I'm going to put you on the spot. Any last thoughts?
Just this Father's Day, a reminder, If you don't buy this book for your dad, it's gonna really piss him off.
and Amazon Prime will get this to you before Father's Day. You will be able to get this book, and
We'll have
you
it
know
by
what?
Monday.
The cheapskate, it's less than $30. Get it for your father.
And Indigo can get it out as well. And yeah,
Perfect. Davin, last thoughts?
well, I want to say thank you to Gordon and Miriam for joining us. This is the start of our tour from coast to coast in Canada, and I can't think of a better place to start than Odd Society, because you've got wonderful spirits and you got a really good attitude towards spirits, some of which you've shown us tonight. I've really enjoyed being there, and I really appreciate being part of the Whisky Book Club. Thanks very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for
Well said.
having us.
Miriam,
Yeah,
it's all up to you. You got the very last words before I take us away.
So thank you so much for having us. I enjoyed meeting you in the cyber world here, and I just want to add to Blair's important pitch for the book to reach people by Father's Day. You can also order the rye online, and in a nice combination, you can send your father the rye.
Wow, fabulous.
And fold the book over on page 32 so they see the exact page. Get that, and bring Dad to your place next Saturday, because you said you're open next week. So next Saturday,
Yeah.
Father's Day weekend, it's the time to go to the Odd Society.
And I just want to say thank you all for promoting and supporting Canadian whiskey and what's going on in Canada, because there's a lot of super interesting things from so many distilleries. And just thank you for including us, and we're happy to be part of it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Blair. Thanks, Davin. Thanks, Gordon. Thanks, Miriam. That's it, Whiskey Brothers and sisters. This has been a milestone episode for us, one that I hope everyone else here really, really enjoyed. So, here's my glass. I got to find. Well, I've got two still. Let's go with both still. There we go. Here's the good company. Oh, my wife's helping me with a little bit of rye. Here's the good company. Here's the good whiskey, and now cocktails I have to add to this spiel. Here's the good books. Here's the good conversation. And here's to seeing you all next week, Saturday, June 20th, for our Whisky Book Club's Canadian Whiskey Tour Shelter Point Edition. Good night, all. Have a fantastic night. And everyone, stick around for a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more. Cheers,
Take care.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh.
Oh,
We're still
Nicole, are you in
live, huh?
we're still live. Yeah, I'm in Edmonton. Same as Dolph.